Hey, beautiful people of the internet, how are you guys doing today? Hopefully great, and welcome back. So in today's video, I'm going to show you guys exactly how to go and farm for some Argon crystals within like less than 5 minutes. 5 minutes or less, depending on how lucky you guys are. If you guys would like to go buy some merch, remember to take a look at the links down in the description. And of course, we will be doing shoutouts based off of whoever goes and, buy some merch. Anyways, don't forget to spot and click the subscribe button for more Warframe videos. Without further ado, let's get this guide on the road, shall we? Now, before I continue even further with the guide, I do want to state that this particular method can be used with any rare resource you feel. It can be used with, Arcanes cells, it can be used with modules, anything that's a very rare resource, and it works even better if it's like, say, something that's very common, say, polymer bundles. So basically anything that's a resource and it's in steel path, then you guys will definitely be 100% golden. So you'll be needing around 1 to 2 different types of boosters depending on the amount of Argon you guys need in a short amount of time. So first things first, in our search bar, just type in drop space C, and as you guys can see, we have a resource booster. So we have the 3-day one, the 30-day one, and the 7-day one. So the duration type doesn't matter in any way. It all depends on your wallet size or your platinum size. The whole point is go and get yourself one of these boosters and you'll be set. So for the video's sake, I went with around the 3-day one just because it was the cheapest option. Now let's say theoretically that you need to go and get yourself a large amount of Argon in a short space of time. This particular part of the video is actually optional, but like I said, if you need a lot of Argon, go and get yourself a resource booster. So in order to do this, clear your search term, type in resource, or not like that, type in resource space, and here is the 3-day resource booster. Just like the previous booster, the duration type doesn't matter, and this particular part of the video is optional, so you can actually go and skip this part if you so wish to do so. We're going to be rolling with Nekros, who is the best farming frame in the entire game, and I don't care what both Korra and Hydroid offers. Nothing they offer will make Nekros irrelevant. Why I say this is because of how Desecrate works and what it relies on. Now, I like to think of Argon as a troll resource. Not only is it rare to get, but also when you need it is never there. I believe it expires after about 12 plus hours, and trust me, you'd think that's a very long time, but it happens more frequently than you actually think it does. DE releases a new weapon or a new prime warframe or anything, and it will need Argon crystals, and chances are nobody exactly has any of it lying around. Now, for this particular video, I'm going to show you guys 2 builds for Nekros. I'm not going to go into them into too much depth just because I've already covered Nekros in a previous video, and if you guys are interested, I'll leave a link down in the description, and I suggest that particular video to you guys at the top right. It's basically a zero Forma build for Nekros, and if you guys want to go use it, go ahead and click on the link. It's a zero Forma build that covers both Desecrate and Shield of Shadows. So with that being said, let's start off with the 2-0 or the 2 Forma build for Nekros. So what I'm basically doing here is I'm going to be building for Desecration purely. Desecration requires range and efficiency. Now you don't need to worry about too much range and efficiency, but I would like to min-max my build and what. So let's say theoretically that you guys do not need to have too much range and you're okay with just 1 overextended or cunning drift or stretch or even auger reach. What you guys can do with the extra mod capacity is you guys can go and add more survivability, such as more armor. I do recommend the gladiator mod set, the gladiator mod that gives you more armor. That way you guys can increase your crits for any slash based weapon you guys have. You guys can actually have basically a built-in stat stick after the nerf to Helios Prime and his stat stick. So with the build itself concerned, I'm going to be rolling around with overextended, cunning drift, and stretch for more range. That way I do not have to worry about Desecrate in one bit or form. I can just go anywhere and just kill enemies at my disposal. Next up we're going to be using is Rolling Guard, Vitality, and Health Conversion, just so that we don't die as easily. Health Conversion gives us armor if we go and pick up health orbs, and trust me, it's about 1200-ish armor that you guys are going to be getting. Not a percentage of whatever you have, 1200 base armor. So there's that. We're also going to be using Vitality, not just for it gives us more health, just so that the spoil does not have a restriction on it. And then we're going to be using Rolling Guard, just so that we can stay invulnerable or get ourselves out of any sticky situation that comes at us. As you guys know, Nekros by default has about 125 armor, and even though health conversion does give us more than 1000 base armor, it still has its limits, so keep that in mind. Now, like I said previously, we're going to be using Despoil, and the way Despoil works is that instead of Desecrate using your energy, it's only going to be using your health. In other words, you don't have to worry about any form of limitation on Desecrate. Desecrate will always be on throughout the entire mission, and that's why we're going to be using Vitality. That way we've got less limitations to Desecrate itself. Now, this build I just showed you guys is not the be all to end all builds. Basically, I'm just giving you guys a blueprint. Build to your heart's content, to whatever your playstyle is. Like I said in the beginning of this particular part, if you feel like you got too much range, go and add in more utility mods such as the gladiator set. That way you guys can increase the critical chance on your melee weapon, basically giving you guys a lot more utility and, you know, killing the enemies a lot more quicker than usual. Now, in our Arcanes department, I'm going to be using Arcane Guardian for more armor, because once again, I do not want to get caught with my pants down and get killed immediately. We've also got ourselves Arcane Pulse. That way we can replenish our health if we pick up an energy orb. And like I've said previously, if you guys are going to be rolling with a Desecrate build, your health being at 100% or you having health in general is extremely important. And Arcane Pulse is going to help with that a lot. Let's assume that you guys are going to be able to continuously kill the enemies, and Desecrate will do its thing. Like I said previously, here is a zero Forma build for Nekros when it comes to farming, and there is no difference between this build and the previous build other than the amount of Forma that you went and used, and also with the aura that I'm using currently. Now, feel free to pause this video if you feel like it, because I'm not going to repeat myself, and all I've done is I've made sure that Desecrate has a good amount of range. I've got Vitality, I've got Rolling Guard, and I've also got Despoil, and of course I've got the exact same Arcanes, Arcane Pulse, so that I can, you know, replenish my health, because it's going to be important, and Arcane Guardian, so that way I've got more armor, because I do not want to go and die. In our weapons department, you guys actually have a few choices, but you basically must bring the most powerful anti-armor weapons at your disposal. Examples include the Reaper Prime, the Grand Prime, or the Cronin Prime. Now, there's plenty of examples out there, but basically the criteria that your melee weapon must have is weapons that have a very high critical chance by default, a very high stage chance by default, and mainly favor in slash. This is what I like to call as the holy trinity of melee weapons. So yeah, if you guys would like to have more examples, I've made a list video where I talk about the most powerful primed weapons of all time. There's only 5 of them. Obviously I can do a part 2 to that video. If you guys are interested in that video, I'll leave a link down in the description, and I'll suggest it to you guys at the top right. So go and watch it if you guys would like to have more examples. Now, as for the build, let's go over it. So currently I am using the Reaper Prime, and as you guys can see, I've got 4 Forma onto it. Now, this is your typical meta build when it comes to melee weapon, where you've got, you know, your base damage, your critical chance, your condition overload, you know, for your status, an element of choice, your critical damage, and finally a Riven along with some attack speed. Now, as for the Riven, you basically can go and add any form of utility you feel like adding, whether it is an additional element, because as you guys know, I am only going to be rolling around with Toxin just because I feel like it helps out Slash a lot. That way I can go through any form of shield without worrying about, you know, the Corpus whatsoever, because in the Void, Corpus units are definitely there, and their most powerful element is their shield, and Toxin goes right through them. So I like to roll with that, and also Toxin does help Slash out quite a bit. Now, in terms of our Riven, you guys can basically add any form of utility you feel is important, but basically whether it can be an additional elemental mod. So if you guys want to viral, you can go and add your dual stat Toxin mod. That way you guys have much higher levels of viral. You guys can go and add Organ Shatter. That way your critical damage number or your critical chance numbers are a lot bigger. Entirely up to you guys. Like I've said previously, go and add. This build is basically a blueprint to how I think you guys should build. Once again, build to your playstyle and whatever your heart content is at, or whatever your heart's content is. Let's talk school trees. So I'm going to be using Vazrin, and we're going to be needing a particular node called Protective Dash, and basically what it does is you'll be able to heal yourself and allies included at will. On top of that, you'll be granted 5 seconds of immunity. In other words, the enemies won't be able to damage you in any way or form for those 5 seconds. Now, some of you guys may be wondering, why do we need Protective Dash if we've got around 1 to 2,000 armor? Well, not only this, but we're not going to be playing a regular Steel Path mission, but also we're going to be playing the MOT Void Steel Path mission, where the enemies hit a lot harder. And in the entirety of a steel path, the enemies will just shred through your 1 to 2000 armor like it's a hot knife going through butter. And by you having protective dash, it's an extra layer of survivability, because not only can you heal yourself at will, but also you'll be able to get out of any sticky situation that gets thrown at you in any way or form. And trust me, that is always a plus side, because Nekros, without his buffs, he is extremely squishy. The enemies will basically look at him and just, laugh at him. Now, in order to unlock these nodes, you basically have to go and farm a special XP called Focus. In order to get this Focus, you basically have to go and do Eidolon hunting or go and nuke an entire room in, Elite Sanctuary Onslaught. If you guys would like to know how to farm for some Focus in large amounts of quantities, go and take a look at the links down in the description. I have an Eidolon hunting guide and I have a Focus farming guide on Elite Sanctuary Onslaught. And I'll try and suggest those two videos to you guys at the top right, so pay attention. So most importantly, we'll need to go and equip our operator with the correct arcane. So in this case, I'm going to be using Mage's Anomaly, and the way it works is on transference in, enemies will then be pulled within 25 meters towards the Warframe. So in other words, this is what I meant by previously with Nekros, where you guys do not really need to have much range on your Desecrate, because you can be able to pull all of them within a 25 meter radius, and you can just spam pull them. So you can just group up so many of them, and you group them up, and then what's going to happen is that your melee weapon will be able to hit multiple of these enemies in one single go, allowing you to deal massive damage relatively quick. So yeah, Mage Anomaly is very important. The second arcane I have is Mage's Lockdown, and that's not really important in any way. It's just for, it's just there for the sake of it being there, because I do have a second slot that's open. So Mage's Lockdown just gives you extra crowd control for about 4 seconds and tests up to about 10 enemies within the 15 meter radius. But don't worry too much about Mage's Lockdown. If you guys are definitely going to be doing this method, go after Mage's Anomaly. And the only way that you guys can get Mage's Anomaly is to go and speak to Lord Duck as your Tenno in Fortuna, and then go and do her syndicates. So like I've previously stated, there is only one way that you guys can go and get Argon crystals, and that is to go into the void and hope and pray that you guys get lucky. Now here's what I mean by the resource booster. So as you guys can see, this is Steel Path, and if I hover over it, it tells you exactly what Steel Path offers. And other than the enemy being a lot more stronger, as you guys can see just below that, you get a 100% increase to resource drop chance and a 100% increase to mod drop chance. Now yes, the resource drop chance that we bought from the market does stack with the resource drop chance that you guys get from the Steel Path. In other words, you'll have a much higher increased chance in order to go and get yourself Argon crystals. And as you guys know, if you guys can see it, or this can go away, as you guys can see, Argon crystals is definitely quite a rare resource, so you'll be definitely be needing those boosters to go and help you. And the node that I recommend you guys go to is MOT Survival, the Steel Path. So usually when it comes to using this loadout itself, here's what you guys need to do. So because this is Steel Path, a lot of enemies are going to be spawning in one singular area, so I recommend rather pick an area where you can freely move. It can be anywhere, doesn't really matter. It's honestly up to your guys' personal standard. Now what I like to do is I'd like to group all the enemies up along with Mage's Lockdown. We'll actually do a little bit of crowd control and all that, not too much. And then when this happens, you then want to start attacking the enemies with all your might and attack speed. Now because there's lots of enemies that are being hit in one single blow, you'll be able to max out your combo counter extremely fast. So like I said previously, if you guys do not have a Riven, I do recommend maybe adding say Organ Shatter, so you guys can have an increased critical chance damage output. Therefore you guys can go and kill the enemies. And basically what you want to do is you want to try and kill all these enemies as fast as possible. The quicker you guys can go and kill the enemies, the better. And also go and make sure that your Desecrate is active, because then you'll be killing these guys for nothing. And one thing I do want to mention to you guys is that you guys can go and bring a Smita Kavat. It definitely will help, but the one problem I do want to say is that it's going to be a bit of a burden, because your cat is going to continuously being one shot by the Steel Path if it decides to go and run out by itself or any other reason. And I feel like it's a little bit too much maintenance, so I do recommend, if you want, you can bring in your Kavat, but at the same time I do not recommend it in any way or form. Now one thing I do want to note is that let's say you guys do exactly what I've stated in this video, and after 5 minutes and you still haven't gotten your Argon crystal, then I recommend that you guys stay on for another 10 minutes, I say around the 8-minute mark, you should start getting your Argon crystals to drop. And you know, depending on what type of boosters you got will then determine the amount of Argon crystals you will definitely be getting. So stay around the 8-minute mark, 9-minute mark, even go to the 10-minute mark. And if you still haven't gotten your Argon crystals, which chances are highly unlikely, then go and restart after 10 minutes. But you should definitely be getting it around the 8 to 10 minute mark is guaranteed. 5-minute mark you sometimes will get lucky, and sometimes you'll get within like the 2 to 3 minute mark. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's all for today's video. If you guys have liked the video or it helped you in some way or form, remember to leave a like and don't forget to spark and click the subscribe button for more Warframe videos. Make like a banana and split.